Thank you. Absolutely a pleasure to viewers. Thanks for the opportunity as well. Today, the 10 minutes session that we're going to run through, we're going to see how our platform um, has been used for a specific purpose. So we want to make sure that we show you the actual progress and action, applied AI in action. The use case is actually for a very large, very large electronics major. And this is about their hazardous substance evaluation. They had publicly gone public with their ESG plan, the ESG plan of going net neutral by 2030. Quite aggressive, being an electronics major, they had quite a bit of things to do. We are talking of massive amount of document and input coming in all forms and shapes. I just want to give you a glimpse of their whole plan. I mean, it's not just a standard governmental procedures. I'm going to share a small screen to show you how important and how do they do it and how complex it is, right? Just to set the scale of it. I'm showing some of the very public documents, some examples that I'm actually showing it through. For example, this is from Apple. This is how Apple tried to do it. And 2030 is the line that they look at for this kind of risk. And when you look at the actual document, quickly to show you the document, this is the kind of level of details that they would run through for their material disclosure laws. So usually what happens is, while regulation would ask them to do a certain amount, they would want to go through far more in detail and set their own standards. So which means it is not some one product that fits all and put it into the market. Every company will have their own regulations and aspects of it. Now, the question basically that we had been challenged with is how can we help them in actually bringing back and helping them in solving their ESG puzzle, right? And the systems that we are talking about is, at the minimum, we are talking about close to about 3,000 different labs providing information from across the world, different languages. We are talking in the last 6 months, close to about 300,000 pages, 8 to 15 pages per document is an average that you look at. And at least over 4,000 different variations coming from different labs across the world to even look for strong variation. So how did we work for it? This is predominantly toxicology reports, and each toxicology material report will look very different from this thing. How did we look at it? The real challenge would look at identifying the right place from where you have to extract and bring it, normalize and bring it. And that's what I will actually show you purely on how AI was looked at it and done. The whole package plan, the product allowed them to do this whole sample. So from getting the document, identifying the document, then identifying which part of the document that we need to extract, what kind of extraction to be done, and then the various rules and applications that should be applied on top of it, right? And even when you are looking at it, what you'll always see is that there is a feedback loop also that needs to be brought in for that aspect of it. I'll skip this because this is the various methodologies that we had to go through to do it. But largely, we went into this particular aspect of things. We wanted to do an end-to-end solution. We didn't just want to give the AI part. We wanted to make sure the AI goes to production. And what we believe is that 80% of AI does not go to production. And this one is an exception, and it is in production now. So we said we have to use all the AI might. That's one part to solve the problem, but we have to also make sure the source and the end destination goal have to be matched. So there should be automation through the pipeline, automation enough so that people are able to extract and run through the information by just putting it. Business users can interact with the system. What is the complexity? The real value lies in tables, and table comes in every single form. And believe me when I say this, we even evaluated large language models. Many of the large language models could utterly fail when it comes to table data extraction for it. And that is where we moved over and built in a clear approach. While I'll emphasize a lot on table data, the rest of them I'm then giving it a lesser importance because that was the core of it. So when we looked at table came in all forms, shapes. I'll show you some example right next in the next slide. We looked at how do we identify a table, whether a native model is required, whether it is a scanned document that is necessary. Once it is scanned, how do we identify the place where the table is? How do you know which is the rows, which is the column, and then do the normalization aspect? I'll blow it up one step at a time. This is how we actually did the whole process part of it. The different colors are one where there is more intense AI required. The other ones are where more easier AI is utilized to do it. And so what you will find predominantly is we identify the context of the table. When you say context, take the whole document, identify based on the paragraph, how the data, which table that we have to work on. Once we identify the table itself. Then you identify the relevant table. Then you identify the structure of the table. Then once you identify the structure, you again normalize it. You don't want all the data from the table. And it continues. Most of the tables have different headers and values. And we even go to the point where we filter and narrow down the table to a point where we say that only this relevant tables out of the 100 tables that is in the document. 100 is an exaggeration. About 4, 5, 6 tables in the document, in specific document, is used for the transformation, that specific identification as well. What did we achieve out of it? We roughly went in about 90% accuracy here. When we talk about 90% accuracy, I'll go into a little more detail. Some of the samples, table is not just a table. If you see the first column, they've used colors to even identify a certain aspect of the table. So even that was very important for it. Some of the tables are so narrowly placed that 2 tables were supposed to be seen side by side. Those were the challenges, and you can't go wrong here because then it affects the whole morality, this thing of the whole extraction team that is running through. How did we work? We worked in 2 phases. We did the first version, then improved on the second version for it. First run, we got the improvement was, if you next see, while we see the headline figure is 76 and 86%, what you have to look at is that is 100% correct in the document. From 80 to 100% is also a significant uplift in the content. So if you put these 2 together, we are roughly talking about 98% of the data getting automated. And that is what we actually see today in production for this company. So when I say 300,000 papers run through, this is the reason why it run through today, the trust behind the system for the validation and accuracy that runs through it. I would actually have some more inputs to actually show to you and on this content. What you will actually see is what have we done here in this whole process when we talked about the various type of transformation and methods that we have used. For example, today the work that has been happened, work would usually take about 1 to 1.5 days normally for a person to work on. But what you'll see now, where even if I put 1 to 1.5 days for each person to look and physically look at the record, is it actually a sustainable and scalable method? And obviously, when you give about 4,000 different vendors who are supposed to give you different types of formats of document, that would be almost an unsustainable discussion to talk through. So we have been at the centerpiece of the transformation. So if the ESG goal had to be looked at, and if reading through those complex document is one of the core aspects of this aspect, and I think we are very proud to say that with our 90% accuracy, we have been central to the very aspect of they being able to do to reach to that ESG goals. Now, when we look at again, what are the methods to the different screens that we look at? I just want to throw out few names to make sure that we also talked about it. For identifying of the tables, we use DETR methods, the detection transformer methods. Then we use for identification of tables, the positioning of tables, we use table transformers, structure recognition methods for identifying what type of table it is being used. For contextual extractions, we used our own fine-tuned models, which we built on MLM methods. We converted the table data into a Q&A form, where we used, again, a fine-tuned transformers to actually be able to talk through the data rather than just extract the information. We transformed it into a form where question answers can be used on top of it. Finally, we used CRF method, the conditional random fields method, basically to where you have this random line on the top right, which gives a line marker, but which follows a certain pattern. So a whole bunch of extraction methods, AI methods, all put together in a very complex system to process. And this is industrial scale put into it. For example, this is completely running on Kubernetes systems, scalable by itself. And hence we were able to achieve that the transformation that we were targeted for. Especially while it is called automation transformation, I would say it is much more of an AI example of how AI can be taken to production. I will open myself for questions after this point.
Thank you, Satish. Start the Q&A. Yeah. Dr. Fatma, would you like to go first in this presentation?
Thank you very much. The presenter is very professional. I like the presentation very much and the sequence. I have a very simple question here. How many languages does it support, the system or the
Today
platform?
we have wonderful question. Today we have done about 18 languages. Out of these 18 languages, about 6 of them are English-like languages, which pretty much the systems would accept using the standard methodologies that we look for. So these are the European languages that you pretty much look for. We have not handled Arabic for sure. We have not also handled any of the languages from, say, for example, from India. Indian languages we have not looked for. Chinese is definitely included. Chinese is definitely included.
This leads us to ask another question related to the accuracy percentage. Does it remain the same or is it changing from one language to another?
Again, thank you very much for the question. There is sensitivities when it comes to the languages, but then the way we have neutered it, the way we have worked around the language aspect of it, is to break down the problem. Say, for example, the reason why we had CRF in some places was specifically on that issue. Right? There was a pattern that we could see in certain type of documents. In specifically, I think it was for the Chinese language. And hence we were able to utilize that. So if you see the entire flow line that I looked at, the first thing that I do is to classify the document. Even when I classify the document, I'm very clear that, look, there is a language variation to it, and hence create a different pathway if required for those pathways.
Thank you very much. When it comes to language, just one last question.
Yes,
There is a need for knowledge representation here.
Sorry, I missed the
Have
word.
you dealt with the language?
Have
you dealt with the language as at the level of alphabetical level or at a knowledge representation
we have done more at the
layer?
knowledge representation. We have done more at the knowledge representation rather than at the alphabet level. The alphabet. Did I lose you? No.
So this leads us to another question. I'm sorry.
No, please go.
But how have you reached your knowledge representation and what exactly you've done in terms of that? Thank you. That's my last question.
The way we have, I'm going to dumb this down to say we had knowledge dictionaries kept in place. We did not use knowledge graphs because that was becoming way too complex and expensive. We were handling it more on a flattened knowledge dictionary levels. And in the dictionary, we had convert largely with reference to English. So we identified the language and based on English, we were building the dictionaries for different languages as well. Because we were interested in the toxicology information. And if you see where the relevant, let me put it this way, except that the fact that, say, barium or boron is written in slightly different form in Chinese, the heading of the table can be narrowed down to an English normalized form. That is how we work through the process.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to the next juror, Professor Zhang. You can ask your question.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for the very nice presentation. So it's good. It's kind of exciting. Could you suppose now you have I just try to see more details, right? Suppose now you have a potential client, right? A bank in India. So, I mean, in this example, how would you like to convince them to use your service?
First and foremost, Dr. Zhang, we are a product company. The product is available for license there, but then we are more focused on the applied AI part of it. We don't want to invent our own algorithms or build our own this thing, but we want to provide them with a whole mechanism by which we can take that AI to production. Second, what we bring them to them is the ability to talk the business language. The thing where probably we got successful in this particular pursuit, even in this electronics major that I'm referring to, is our ability to talk to the business and allow the business to configure. Like the dictionary that I talked to you about, rather than we trying to get a data scientist to go and type in the dictionary, because the language data scientist thinks in a very different way. We allowed the business to go and configure the dictionary, and that made a lot of difference for us to really work through. If I have to take the specific example and full material disclosure as a solution in the next one, may not be a bank, but another manufacturing company would be an absolute right case to look for, because we have kept things configured. Like I said, if you have a policy, we have broken down the policy for you in a business understandable fashion, and then the technology in a separate fashion. What I do is I come back and say, give me a document. I'll take your document. I'll break it into so many structures. Now let's identify which part of this your business can help me and target the information. That is how we do.
I see. Okay, now I think your explanation is very helpful. Now I understand the process better. So in this process, what do you think would be the most challenging technical part?
Two parts to it. I'll take from a practical piece of it. Let me actually lay down the whole process that we do. Anything that we work on, the process engine that works through is when I identify a point, when I get a trigger that a document or a batch of documents is placed in one place, I would then identify whether it is a native document or a scanned document, or some pages is scanned or some pages is native. We get all those varieties. Identify the right OCR aspect that is necessary for it. When you do the OCR, what kind of AI correction to be done to make the OCR work better? These are all check marks and ticks that we can work on in the platform. So that, for example, skew correction, up to 13 degrees skew correction, it happens automatic for us. Then the next thing that we would do once the extraction is done is to find the area of relevance for you. For example, do you want context information to be extracted? So we break the whole page into header, footer, contextual information, which is paragraph information, areas where there are signatures, areas where there are seals, areas there is a table, paragraph. I think I told you the paragraph part, and where there are loose text, something like something slash something part of it, right? So once you break down the structure, this is the technology aspect of it. This we provide to a business to say, let's put a structure around it. You define what you're looking for from the information, and we build a dictionary together. We allow them to configure the dictionary. This is the whole process that happens for us to build.
Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you. It's much clearer. Thank you.
So over to you.
So you won't really put it as under the category of document processing for compliance?
Foundationally, the example that I'm showing you is document processing. We have been rated as a leader in document processing aspect as well, but then as a platform. But because the reason why you see document coming out very well is that today one of the places where AI helps out heavily is places where they're in documents. But as a platform that we talked of and the process that we talked of, we do all the way from absolutely unstructured data like what you get as keystroke data as well in the platform. What we also talk about is data from a video, data feeds from a voice recording, because these are also places where we apply the platform. And what we do is to convert everything into a whole bunch of textual information first, and then process it further.
Okay, so how much part of this entire data ingestion is being handled by the LLM, and how much is by your custom models?
All right. Wonderful question. We don't actually have to force people onto the LLM. What we provide is a whole bunch of choice. right?
Okay.
Now, what we have seen today is while LLMs are available, there is also the aversion towards using it in large scale because of the hallucination effects that comes along with it. While we claim we have a good RAI layer on top of every of the answer, there is always this thing to it. Hence, what we have done is we always provide a choice to the customer. And in the part of the choice, LLM, for example, today I support OpenAI models, Llama models, and Gemini models, all by the click of a button. And at the same time, I also allow them to use BERT, DistilBERT, Roberta, or the CNN techniques, because they are all available within the organization to place and play with a very limited budget as well. So the
Thank you.
viability works very well.
Thank you, Satish. Very good work. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Satish. We have shared a link in the chat box, sir. Please do copy the link before you leave the session.